is film and music critic Mike Rubin. He's written about film, music, sports, and television for Spin for a long time, for about 10 years, and then he's also written for The Times, Rolling Stone, GQ, Village Voice. Mike Rubin, everybody. Do your mics work?
No, but I can shout!
So I'm going to give this one to you.
I got my tight leash. The last Police album was 1983, and the last tour was, last show was 1986.
I'm kind of foggy about the details of the dates and so on. In fact, some of the date cards up there, I've been informed, are incorrect, but screw that, it's a movie, right?
Why, you mentioned before that it's a home movie. Why now to share with the audience, why 20 years later?
Well, it's all about the technology. When I shot the movie on Super 8, it was a medium that died soon afterwards. It was replaced by video. But it was these little 3-minute canisters of film, and there's no negative, which means that every time I look at it, if I try and edit it, I'm destroying it. Just putting it through the domestic grade projectors scratches a little bit, and so I put it in the shoebox. Then they invented video. And I transferred some of it to video, and it just looked terrible. Then they invented personal computers. And then they invented Final Cut Pro, and that was the big breakthrough. And, you know, in the first part, trying to edit it, now I know you youngsters will find this really hard to comprehend, but in those days, with editing, there was no undo. I'll let that sink in for a minute. Every edit was cut half in the middle of a frame here, cut in the middle of a frame there, and then I'd have to shave off a little bit of thing with a nail file, shave it like that, and shave that bit like that. Then you get a little drop of blue, this is all with white gloves, and stick it like that. And if I didn't shave it down enough, there'd be kind of a lump there, and it gets stuck in the thing. So this lack of undo meant that there was no possibility of a learning curve. So, wisely, I put the stuff in the shoebox and waited until they invented Final Cut Pro and undo. And so it was really, in the last few years, the last component was cheap memory. It sounds very poetic. But actually what I'm talking about is that I could put my 50 hours of little films onto a hard drive smaller than a house. And so really it's the technology that has made the movie come out. Now, 20 years after everyone's forgotten about the movie. It's really all about the technology. It's kind of interesting though, the film was shot by that wild-eyed rock star, 25-year-old rock star, and edited by this wise 50-something-year-old father of many.
You mentioned in the film the band's cynical plans and Machiavellian scheming at the very onset.
Yes, I freely admit.
How surprised were you when you actually became the world's biggest band?
Well, I wasn't surprised because that was the plan all along. And I have to say, it sounds very prescient of me, but no, every group. Tonight there's 50, 100 groups playing across New York City. Every one of them imagines that they're going to conquer the world. And if they didn't imagine that, then they wouldn't be playing in that day. There's this kind of optimism that you get every night after the show in the dressing room, no matter how bad it was, we really rocked ourselves, we slew us, and that's the way bands think, So at the time when I was shooting this stuff, even when we were a little itty-bitty band just beginning to crack the clubs, I assumed that we would conquer the world.
That's better. Much better now.
The film does a great job of capturing life in the fishbowl, and how your life was transformed, as you say, into a Duran Duran video. And I was particularly struck by the image of Sting in the Karl Marx t-shirt as he rode the cable cars up on the photo shoot at Sugarloaf Mountain in Brazil. What for you was...
I had to go get Karl Marx to sign off on that. Every logo in the movie I had to go find. Karl Marx was cheap though, he's dead.
What for you was perhaps the most bizarre moment of the onset of celebrity?
Oh, That's a good question. There were so many. I suppose, well, there's so many bizarre things. It's the strange things that people did at the time. They don't do it so much anymore. People are more dignified now. There isn't that hysteria. But at the time, people would come into your presence shaking and quivering. And, you know, I look at myself in the mirror every day. I'm kind of over it. My wife, she beats me up if I snore. My kids aren't that, you know, I live in, my friends, you know, the world I live in is not, but back then, people would quake. Because, and it's not because I'm so incredible or I have, you know, it's because they have in their minds, like those Japanese kids, they're looking at us and we're like creatures from Mars. It has nothing to do with our personal qualities or in any way. It's in their minds, they've seen that picture, they listen to the music, they have a whole fantasy in their heads and they build up this character. It's from the photograph. And then the actual physical manifestation is standing in front of them and it kind of adds up in their minds to more than the actual person standing in front of them. And so watching people kind of go through these conniptions was a little weird. And at first you fall for it. You think, wow, hey, I must be something. But you quickly realize when you go back to your hotel room and stare at yourself in the mirror again, that you're the same guy. It actually had a weird effect on my friends, my college friends, my school friends, you know, the people that the other bands that I'd worked with. Because, as I explained in the film, when people are coming at you like that, you kind of have to recoil a little bit, and the wall goes up, and your buddy tries to call you up, but they have to get past a receptionist now, and so they think that you're all stuck up, and since they're acting weird, I start acting weird, and then they get even more weirded out. So I lost all my friends. I've rediscovered them all since, but there was a period there that the bubble was complete. All of the people that we'd grown up with were kind of outside the bubble. They didn't understand what we were going through, and they assumed that we turned into assholes, and they were right. Much better now.
When you wrote that message, I guess on your 29th birthday, or you depict, certainly in the film at that point, on the drum kit?
No, I didn't write it then.
Well, was there anyone particular in mind that you were thinking of?
Like who? No. As you can see in the film, we liked each other. We got along great. Every shot, not only in the film that you've seen, but in the other 50 hours that I have, every shot, it's clear. We liked each other. We enjoyed hanging out with each other. When Andy and Sting would look into the camera, they'd have a goofy smile on their face. We enjoyed each other's company. So, sure, we had our battles. Bands do. The only bands that don't have battles is where there's one leader and the rest of them are passengers. Or else they're not a very good group. You know, in the Police, there was conflict because we were so close and we were on each other all the time, just like siblings. You know, we did indulge in the occasional gratuitous emotional violence, mostly out of boredom. But as you can see, we liked each other. So, the message on the drums. I'll tell the story. We were at a sound check. There's a hum coming out of the guitar amp, as there so often was. And they're fixing it. I'm sitting on the drum waiting for them to fix the hum on the drum, on the guitar amp. Record company guy spots his moment. He's got 5 albums from 5 important local people. Rushes up, hey, can you know, so, okay, sure. I got the Sharpie, I signed the 5 albums, fine, he goes away. I've still got the Sharpie. They're still working on the guitar amp. Fuck off, you cunt. It was just a little moment. Self-provocation. Had nothing to do with Il Duce.
Now, I don't know, the audience may not know, but you're the composer of over 70 different soundtracks for film and television.
It's true. Yeah, a lot. That's what I do for a living now. It's very sedate. I have a studio at the other end of my garden. I am not personally the can of beans anymore. One aspect that actually watching this tonight, it occurred to me that I didn't really impart, which is a sense that part of the feeling of being in a band like that is that you are personally the can of beans. You are personally the product. When I score a film, I'm not the product. The product's up there, and I'm back in my studio, anonymously contributing to the product. But when you're in a band, you are the thing. That's why you have to dress yourself in funny clothes. That's why you have a responsibility to have an outlandish hairdo. It's your job to look weird because you are personally the product. That also has a weirdifying effect on your life.
You've worked with Francis Ford Coppola, Oliver Stone, Ken Loach,
Me.
John Waters. Who is there a particular filmmaker that you've worked with that you're particularly proud of? Or?
Well, I'm proud of them all. Actually, my favorite film kind of disappeared without a trace here in America. It was called Very Bad Things. And it's the best movie by far that I ever scored. It was big in Europe, but didn't make that much of a noise here. All the different directors have different atmosphere around them. Francis Coppola is a big genial father figure, Uncle Francis. He's very embracing. The food, the craft services on a Francis Coppola set is the best. Oliver Stone, a little more dry. Ken Loach, communist. I felt weird working with him because I'm a blood-sucking capitalist, to tell you the truth. Actually, no, I'm a bleeding heart capitalist. But he forgave me because he came to my studio, and I, at that time, you know, had my you know, I lived in a big house with servants bringing food and stuff like that, you know. And I was worried about what this communist would think about all this opulence. But he forgave me because he told me that when he came into the studio, it's me doing all the work. I am the worker. And all the people around, all this lifestyle, were people that I was feeding from the work that I did, which is the opposite of the factory boss, where all the people do the work and the factory boss is up the top, sucking their life essence. It was the opposite in my case. I'm creating the wealth and spreading it amongst the people, so I'm okay with the communists.
How is the process of writing and editing and directing the film?
Well, the directing part is a little loose. The shooting part, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was Cecil B. DeMille, you know. I didn't understand anything. I wasn't, because I didn't know that you had to have establishing shots, cutaways, reaction shots. All these things, I didn't know how to frame a shot. It was all kind of by instinct. I sort of like the way it turned out in a few of the shots. The framing's kind of cool, actually, I think. But really, this movie was all about post-production. And I've done a lot of that. I'm kind of professional at that because for the last 20 years I've been in post-production, sitting with directors while they're figuring out the pacing of their movie, trying to fix things and dealing with the plot arc and the pacing and everything like that. So actually, like I say, it was shot by a rank amateur, but then the wise, wizened, experienced post-production guy got in there.
Having now directed a film, how would you, do you prefer the experience of being the more sole creator to the more of the collaborative process that you do with soundtrack composition?
Film composing is not art, it's craft. And the distinction is, when I'm playing in a rock band, that's art. You're creating art. It's your own collaborative artistic vision. So you're an artist. But when I'm scoring a film, there's only one artist, and that's the director. Everybody else around him is a craftsman. I'm being very creative. I enjoy the creative exercise, but it's all in the service of the director. Because if I deviate from his artistic vision, I'm not serving the movie. Even if he's wrong, he knows why he blocked the actors that way. He knows why it's lit that way, why the wardrobe is like that, why that line of dialogue is in there. And so it's very different. It's actually very cozy. I actually like being a craftsman. I like being an artist as well. But being a craftsman is not so bad because, once again, I'm not the product. I'm not the can of beans personally. The director's got to take the heat.
Why don't we open the
Yes.
floor up to questions?
Out there, right there.
I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but
Go ahead.
I'm sure you haven't done any conclusions about this question about asking, but in 2000 or 2001, I remember that the opening strains of Walking on the Moon were used in a Nissan Xterra SUV commercial, and I'm wondering if that was out of your hands or if the three of you did consent to the use of that song.
Well, I can't remember. If they used the master, then I could have said yes or no, but they probably crossed my palm with silver. But the songwriter, there's two aspects. And in this film, I had the same problem. There's the artist who sings it. There's the guy who wrote it. Then behind those two players, there's the record company who owns the master of the guy who played it. then there's the publisher behind the guy who wrote the song. So those four elements have to be satisfied and dealt with, which is why, since this film escaped from the playpen and went out into the world as product via Sundance, that's when I had to go and deal with all these issues for every piece of music in this film. You'd think, my band, no problem. Wrong. I had to go and deal with, Sting and Andy were fine, particularly Sting, because those are mostly his songs. But the companies behind them, that was where the real struggles were. I had to go find every face in there, get them to sign off. Those German artists that you saw for a flash there, I think there's like 7 seconds of those two different guys. Well, they've disappeared. They were one-hit wonders. The station, the show that they were on has disappeared. The station that broadcast that show has been bought and sold 6 times. There's no record of who those guys were. And in each of those cases, there's the performer, there's the songwriter, there's the publisher, and the record company. And I got them, I finally found them. There's a police fan in Germany whose life seems to be consumed with dating every photograph ever published. Every concert the band ever played, he's got the set list, and probably a recording. And with his expertise at this kind of thing, he was able to find those guys. Very complicated.
So, did you approve the use of walking on the moon in the...
I thought I dodged that question. Tenacious little fuck. Yes, I approved it. They paid me, okay? I can't remember. It would have been cheaper for them to do a sound-alike, because then they only would have had to pay Sting. Any more? Nice questions anymore? There's a nice face.
Did you ever find out what life is for?
Yes, I have 7 children. Which sounds very good. Thank you. Those are all the non-parents clapping. No, I mean, it's terrible, it's all gushy and everything, but really is the meaning of life revealed. I got my shelf, I got Grammys, I got Schmammies, But really, the gift that keeps on giving are those little happy little faces sucking my life essence. And that's what it's all for. Back there, way in the back.
Who would you say would be your biggest influence in terms of your drumming?
Buddy Rich, Mitch Mitchell. Step down from them would be the guy in Cream. Ginger Baker. More recently, I've been listening to the death metal bands, that double bass drum stuff those kids do today. It's actually got me kind of inspired. I started playing drums again, actually. I stopped for 10 years when I became a composer. But then my buddies, Les Claypool and Trey Anastasio, dragged me from retirement, forced me to play my drums. And about 5 years ago, and I'd actually been playing again.
Yeah.
Over there. Black t-shirt.
Any plans to have the DVD or the soundtrack out?
Yes.
People can purchase it?
The movie will be appearing, now that we've had you here, I can now divulge that it's going to be on TV tomorrow. You could have done all this at home. On Showtime. I'm not sure what time. Anyhow, tomorrow. The DVD will be out in September. Now those the tracks, some of you may have noticed that the music was not strictly speaking the Police masters, because I messed around with it just a little bit. I found live recordings, and I was able to get the masters of the live recordings, and also all the studio masters as well. I was able to get obscure moments of live improvisation and take the songs from the original masters and mess them all up, put the lyrics on the wrong song, and score the movie with these tracks that I call derangements. Now currently I haven't got permission to release these, but I'm working on it. There actually is a dodge, which is that on the DVD, the DVD will have another 25, 30 minutes of bonus material, and the menu page. On the menu pages, those tracks are played in their entirety. You can only hear snippets. I'm really proud of them. I really like them. But I understand why Sting and Andy are suspicious, because I know how I would feel if Andy, on the other side of town was taking those masters, screwing around with them, making his own version of them, and putting them out of the market, I would probably say no, which is what he said. But they're in the movie, and as a soundtrack to the movie, I think that takes a little bit of the curse away. But eventually, in the fullness of time, I'm working on both of them. Little by little, I'll get it out of them. Because I like those tracks. But I think their worry is that the original masters, those are the classics. Why mess around with them? Why fog the picture? But I like these new versions too, so hopefully they'll be available sometime. Right here. What's the equalizer? You mean the guy, Edward Woodward? Very professional, hard-boiled actor, Shakespearean actor. I only met him once. Yeah. I was scoring the show. This is the Equalizer. Most of you probably don't even know what the hell we're talking about. But it was a television show called The Equalizer. It was set here in New York. I was on the show one time. That's the one time I met The Equalizer. And my role was that I was a pickpocket. And there's a shot of me in the club, and I'm dancing around, and I pick someone's pocket. And then I walk out, and I hand over, I think I'm meeting my fence, and I open this cabin, and I run into The Equalizer. And I have to say that the actor was such an intense actor. I was supposed to pretend and be acting that I was intimidated by him. I was intimidated. I'm not that good an actor. But a funny little story is, I never took acting classes, never, was in a movie, but this was one time. And so they say, okay, here's the shot. You cross the road and you walk, you walk into the thing there and you do the scene. So, okay, action! And I walk across this New York road, the traffic stopped just perfect. I'm wearing this trench coat, the wind catches it like that. I walk across the road looking cool like that, just somehow my foot hit the curb, just perfect like that. A little snap to my step as I walk up, there's this kind of trail there, walk up the trail, pull open the door, oh man, I know the wind is in my hair. I walk in, close the door behind me, that was a take. That was it, that was incredible. Right in front of me, there's a camera. There's Edward Woodward, there's the director, and he says the first line to me. And I realized that wasn't the shot. This is the shot. One of those little moments. Okay, over there, white t-shirt.
Any possibility of a commercial DVD of Earth?
Well, that played last night in Los Angeles, and for the first time in 30 years or whatever, and that film is so tied up in the kind of rights issues that I've been talking about earlier tonight, that it's kind of tough. But there is this weird cult following for that film, and people ask that question a lot. I'm not quite sure why. It's just a film that has individual performances by 10, 15 different bands, and there's this weird cult following for it. But I know that the rights are a nightmare, so I can't answer that question with any great optimism. Way in the back there, white shirt.
What advice do you have for any aspiring drummers?
Get on the mic. Because the drummer, as I've discovered, works for the singer. Even when the drummer is the singer. You can still play drums, and I know why, because they're bright, they're loud, they're shiny and flashy, and above all, easy. But really, my advice is to get on the mic. Better career. Right there.
There's something you didn't touch on in your movie, which is how early your vision to conquer the world started. I'm interested in when you...
Right from the start.
What drove you to leave Berkeley when you were...
Why did we want to conquer the world?
No.
Don't you?
I'm interested in what gave you the confidence to leave Berkeley and move to Europe and start your...
What gave us the confidence to...
Weren't you at Berkeley?
Oh yes, I was at Berkeley.
Yeah, what gave you the confidence and the drive?
Well, I got an offer of a job. I actually was in Berkeley. I'd started up a magazine that I published, and I was the writer, editor, publisher, and actually was at, my third issue. It was a really cool, clever idea, and I would have been, if I hadn't been a drummer, I would have been a publisher. I would have done something with my life. But I got an offer to join a group in London, and I thought it was just going to be kind of a flash in the pan sort of thing, but one thing led to another, and here I am. Right down here. Yes, the very first show in America was CBGB's. I had arrived here the day before with Sting and Andy, being British, had to go through a visa hassle, and they just managed to get their visas just in time. And they arrived at Kennedy Airport and literally got in a cab, which took them down the Bowery, and they got out of the cab and walked into CBGB's, where there's amplifiers they had never seen before. They walked in straight up onto the stage, plugged their guitars into the, you know, never even seen the brand of these amplifiers before, plug in, turn around, hello America. And not very many. And, you know, it really was, you know, starting in the Bowery. That's where we started. Over there.
Well, thanks for making the movie, it's really interesting.
Oh, shucks, thanks.
And I was wondering if you hear early in the movie would sound like some demo versions of like Demolition Man and See the Sahara.
No, those are the derangements.
Oh, okay. So I guess you answered the question, which was, were some of those songs written in that earlier period?
No, the music is out of sequence.
Yeah.
I did some artistic license with some of the shot. The shot of Sting's last shot, I blame the guy holding the camera for all my problems. Oh, I just couldn't resist having that as the last line of the movie. He actually said that a little bit earlier, but it was just too perfect as the end of the movie. And then the guy I was telling you about, the German guy, he spotted all those things. And but I had to tell him that, God damn it, I'm the director. Shut the fuck up. Right there, black t-shirt.
What would you say, I'm interested in knowing what would be your advice to all those fans who are playing in New York right now and are struggling to conquer the world. What would you say to them?
It's tough. Because the world that, we were very lucky. There was a little crevice in the wall that we worked our way in. The crevice known as New Wave. And there was a cusp, there was a watershed where everything that had gone before was suddenly unhip because of the short hair, long hair divide. All you had to do was cut your hair and you were part of the exciting new scene. It was easy for us. You know, the Sex Pistols invented this cool thing called punk, and we stole it. I did a radio show recently with Steve Jones, the Sex Pistols guitarist. He now has a radio show in LA. And I was wondering what kind of reception I'd get from it, because it's sort of like they were kids and they invented something kind of cool, and we were the big kids. We were like 3 or 4 years older. We were a little bit more experienced, and we said, we'll take that. So what to say to bands now? It's a very different world. Making music has become more democratic. Anybody can do it at home with GarageBand or Pro Tools. You know, you don't need a recording studio anymore, which means you don't need to go to the man anymore to make the music. However, if you want to conquer the world on really the huge, massive scale, you can only do it with the help of the man. And if the big record companies, of which there are only 3 now, decide to buy you to the top, they will. Otherwise, you can make the music much more easily now, but actually hitting the big time is much more difficult. In our day, we could go from radio station to radio station, city to city, and we would meet the local guys, we'd schmooze them, we'd press records into their hands and other things. And we could, just a little payola, and you could do it. When I was on tour with Oysterhead, I was saying, come on, let's go hit the stations. And they said, well, you can do that. You can go down the station, but they'll just be a little embarrassed. Sure, they'll put you on the air, but they can't add the record to the playlist. The playlist comes out in New York. And all the stations across the land are owned by 2 or 3 different companies. And so breaking in, I don't know how you do it anymore. The good part is that the music has been democratized. And I guess the only thing I can offer, and you already know this, is MySpace. Back there, way in the back. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were the can of beans.
Yes.
So why a gym shorts and a t-shirt?
I always get that. The short shorts. That's what everybody wore back then. Magic Johnson wore those shorts. And, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I look at kids these days with their baggy shorts and they got to have one hand. I see the 13-year-olds hanging out, on 3rd Street in Santa Monica where all the kids kind of hang. And the guys have got to hang out with one hand because the other hand's holding up their pants. And I look at those kids and wonder, how's that poor kid gonna get laid looking like that? But, fashions change, In those days, it was the shorty shorts, If I wore those publicly today, I'd make some new friends. Right here.
The Police had this reggae sound initially. Was that a bass thing or the drum aspect?
Well, you see, reggae doesn't exist until the bass and the drums and the guitar get into the groove. You can't play reggae just on guitar. Chick, chick, chick. Where's one? You don't realize where one is until you chick, chick, and then. But really, reggae is all about the bass line. It's one of those forms of music which doesn't exist until you have those three elements. Take any one of those elements by itself, and it isn't reggae. In fact, we didn't strictly play reggae. There was a few of our tracks that were classic reggae. Mostly, they were just inspired by reggae. Reggae inspired me to the fact that you can turn the rhythm backwards. It doesn't have to be a backbeat on 2 and 4. That you can use 3 as the big beat, which I remembered from Lebanese music where I grew up. The debki, the baladi, which is the country rhythm of Lebanon, which has that drop on the 3 beat. The reggae thing just switched on the idea that you can turn it around like that. And so people called it reggae, but it was inspired by reggae, but it wasn't real reggae. We were too white. Right here.
You made a couple references in the film to Clark Kent.
I deny everything.
But you suggested that Clark Kent or the concept of Clark predate the police, or what was that all about?
Well, there were these songs that Sting refused to sing. And I had this tap into Dr. Kent, and I thought that the songs would be really good for the police, but Sting just refused to sing them. They were too silly for such a deep thinker. And so what the hell? So I got Clark Kent into the studio, and Clark Kent was this incredible musician who could play all the instruments, all the drums, bass, guitar, even sing the damn thing. And the police existed at the time, but were broke, starving. As I explained at the beginning of the film, in England, they spotted us in a heartbeat as being carpetbaggers, as being interlopers, as being mercenaries. They spotted us, they knew that I had played in Curved Air, and then when Andy joined the group, oh my God, he played with Soft Machine. And Neil Sedaka, by the way. He was a triple scale guitarist. We couldn't afford that guy, which is why I didn't want him in the band at first, but Sting insisted, and Andy insisted. I just thought he would leave after 2 or 3 gigs. But he insisted, and thank God, because as soon as Andy was in the band, who could actually play more than a D chord and an A chord, that's when Sting started to be able to write really good songs, when Andy joined. I forget what your question was. Did that answer it? Cool. Right over there. Yeah, you.
Yeah, I think my favorite moment was Andy turning around and telling you too fast.
Yeah, he did that a lot. Actually, Sting did that even more.
Yeah,
They both did it.
I knew that. I'm wondering, like, most of the drummers I've ever played with when they play live
They get
I
that.
like to take off, but why do you like to do it? 'Cause you
Well, you get in front of an audience and your heart is pumping. Now you'll notice that show there, we're way at the front of the stage, and it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which gives you an idea of how low down on the bill we were. And yet, we had 5 bands' equipment stacked behind us, so we're right up against the front of the stage in the early afternoon. You have to, earn your way till you go at night when the lights are on. As I say, new bands play in daylight, but it was a big concentrated audience that was really responding to us, and we could feel we've got them. We've taken all these people. I don't know how many there were. Let's say 40,000 people. We got them. We're rocking this place. We've got them by the throat. We could feel it. That's exciting. And, I'm an excitable guy. And it's a funny thing, this band I've been playing with recently, we have these, I write these songs. And I got the demos of the songs. We learn those demos. We go on stage, we play them 10% faster. Then the following summer, I go back. I go to Italy every summer and play for 1 month. That's my drumming nowadays. It's a hobby. I'm semi-pro. And so the next year I've got these recordings of the live show, which are all 10% faster than they're supposed to be. And the band learns these songs, and we go on stage and play them 10% faster than that. That's sort of the way the drummer's heart works, I think. Anyhow, just a couple more. It's getting a little late here. Right there.
What music are you listening
Right now, I listen to satellite radio. And
Next network's here,
which one is it? It's help me out here. Sirius. And I've got it tuned to not country western, bluegrass, Heart Attack. I love Heart Attack in the morning. It's like coffee. Death and destruction, hate and war, I hate. You know, it wakes me up in the morning. It reminds me of why I got into music. You know, I say in the beginning of the film that rock and roll is a few different things. You know, it's basically the mating dance of the human being. I've discovered that it's human plumage. The purpose of music is it's a sex dance. It's the way we display our wares. Have you ever noticed how, you know, when music plays, people start to shake their hips, they thrust their pudenda at each other in a way that otherwise would be utterly socially unacceptable? It's all about sex. But for the young kid, that death metal music is something else as well. It's borrowed masculine adulthood. You know, as I say in the film, when I was a skinny little kid with no chest hair, I could listen to that music, which was adult, was deep. It was like the ape making a big sound. Arr! And it's, you know, I haven't got any hair in my chest, but man, if I play this music loud enough, it's as if I do have chest hair. And so that, I do have chest hair now. I'm fairly confident in my adulthood, but still, listening to that music in the morning just wakes me right up and reminds me of something. I don't know, I just have a visceral, I love it. So I listen to that, bluegrass, because I love the melodies and the twanging, and Latin music, Brazilian music mostly, but I love Latin music. I mean, it seems like in our country, we're the greatest exporter of rock music and of any kind of music. But the weird thing is that we have the lowest standards. And I say this as a patriot and with love in my heart for American music. But really, in Brazil, you can't call yourself a musician until you actually can play your instrument. Anywhere else in the world, the low standard that is acceptable in a pop group would not be acceptable. And so I listen to other ethnic types of music, and there's just a higher standard of musicianship, which doesn't, I'm not concerned about standards of musicianship, I just care about the heart and the music. But those South American, Brazilian, or even Mexican as well, those rhythms are just stronger, I just like them. And also, since they're in a foreign language, I'm not messed up by lame lyrics. I can imagine that it's something cool. Okay, one more, then you can all go home. Right there, black shirt.
Me?
Yeah, you got the black shirt.
Nowadays, who is some of the newer drummers that you are impressed with?
Of nowadays?
Yeah.
There's this kid in Slipknot, Joey something. Fucking little bastard. He is, you know, the youngsters these days, they take what I did, and where I left off, they start from there, and they take it way beyond. A funny little story. I got a call from Les Claypool of Primus, who asked me to produce a Primus track. And so, part of it, he says, well, what we'd like to do is we'd like to, you know, set up some equipment at SIR and jam and get some ideas going. Well, I realized that they were 16 back in the day, and so they're really susceptible. These aren't just like, this isn't a professional thing, they're like fans. And that's sort of why they called, I guess. So I go down there to jam, and I'm there with Jeff Seitz, who I heard got several rounds of applause here tonight. Yes, local boy, went to school right across the road here at Juilliard. And so Jeff and I, who you saw in the movie, with hair, he's still my engineer. We still work together, and we're there, and we had to figure out which storage unit the drums are in. And so he pulls them out, we set them up, and we're both scratching our heads. Let's see this. Didn't I have two splash cymbals? Was there one? Yeah, there was one over the hi-hat as well. You know, we get the thing sort of set up. Meanwhile, Brain, the Primus drummer, is tweaked. This guy plays drums for a living every night. He's completely together. And he's got his drums tuned, and he's watching like this. And I sit down, and I pick up the sticks and start playing. I'm kind of stiff. I haven't, you know, I'm kind of way out of shape, you know. Haven't really played seriously in decades, you know. And I'm playing like, and he's watching. Yeah, that's it. He's copying everything I'm doing, only way better. And I'm sort of stiff, and he's trying. I can see him trying to like emulate the stiffness factor. The kid ate my lunch basically, and that's sort of what got me back into playing drums. I mean, the next day, coincidentally, the guy from Tama Drums, which I've been playing for 30 years now, he calls me up and says, "Hey, so Stewart, you still playing drums? What's up with your drumming?" And I told him, well, you know, yesterday this youngster, this little bastard ate my lunch, and he kicked my ass all over the room, and oh man. He said, "Stewart, what you need is a new drum set." So we sent the new drum set, and I'm getting it out. I've never had a relationship with my drums the way guitarists do with their instrument. You know, you can't take a drum set back to your hotel room and sleep with it the way you can with a guitar. Drums just aren't like that. But these drums, it was this maple finish, and as I get them out of the box, just the exposed burl on those drums, and I get out the stands, which are cool to the touch, but then they warm under my grasp. And I set them up, oh, this catafalque, this magnificent array of drums, and then the flames arose again, and I rediscovered my joy of drumming. And I hope that answers all of your questions. Thank you very much.